And we are going to do that by having a smart time tracking app for agencies or law firms. So far we have had 10 interviews since last meeting, and yeah, things are going well. We are learning a lot. So yeah, please go to the next slide. These are what we think today that we are going to achieve in the next months. We are working on the customer segments and value propositions more than the other fields, and we are seeing that there's a lot of interest from law firms instead of ad agencies. That is the first thing we thought we should work with. We also want to check if management consultancies is a market that we could reach. We didn't talk to anyone from that market yet, but we are planning to do that next week. And our value positions are, I think we are coming up with new value propositions and validating some as well. Next slide, please. So we had some questions since last meeting, and if digital agencies and creative professionals, they had a burning pain while reporting work hours, and also the same question for law firms. We had also we needed to understand why people needed to track time and how they did that. And also if the solutions that they use today, if they are happy with that. So next slide, please. So we learned that digital agencies currently have reasonable solutions, and they just do a good job. That the solutions they have today just are enough for them. And if we created something for them, it would be more like a nice to have instead of a must. While law firms, they seem to have a real pain and something we could offer like better solutions. They have only a few solutions to have time tracking connected with billing, and that's something we are willing to do. That's our work in progress. The law firm side, we only had a few interviews with attorneys, and we are just keep trying to do that. Also, we saw that agencies, they track time to have a better understanding of where their creatives are working. If they are going to a lot of meetings, if they are working on a particular client for a long time, and they use that, they don't actually use that for billing specifically. They use that more for a project management approach than to bill clients. The billing part, we saw that they mostly is just, I don't know, gut feeling. It's just something that come up with a price and that's it. And it's not, it doesn't seem that they are going to change that in the near future. So while law firms, they have a direct connection between timesheet reporting and client billing. It's something like if the attorney reports that he spent an hour doing something, the client's going to get charged 1 hour. That's after some managers, they take a look at the hours, but still, it's very connected, both things. Next slide, please. So what's next? We are going to keep digging and trying to understand better how the law market works. We are going to spend just another week just to make sure digital agencies, they already have a solutions for what we are trying to solve. Just one more week to make sure we are just having the right, we are trying to see if digital agencies really don't need our solution, and that's what we're going to do next week. So by mid next week, if the law market seems promising, we are going to start researching a solution for them and starting to worry about the problem. We're going to try to figure out what we should offer them. And we are just going to keep looking to better understand our customers' pain points. So yeah, that's us.
Good. Thank you. So I'm gonna start, and see why I have an echo, which is probably okay. So great work, and a lot of good customer interviews, I thought, as you were making that initial change. One thing I was confused about was, so I understand there's a deep connection between tracking billable hours and a law firm, and it seemed like from the interviews you stumbled upon an aha moment, but I didn't know exactly what that was. Can you tell us what you're seeing as potential problems in the way that they're doing it now?
Yeah, for law firms?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked to a law firm in Brazil. It's they have I think 40 attorneys, and they have the process they have today to fill the timesheet is actually using Excel, and they have about 5 different files. One file with all the clients and the codes they have, and another file for the hours they're going to charge, and just a mess, complete mess. So if we can create a solution for them, that's like, if there's another law firm that's doing the same thing, then we are going to pursue this path. The thing is, we are still trying to understand how law firms work. It's a work in progress. We just talked to a few attorneys so far, but it seems that's very promising.
Okay. How about Eric Steege? Do you want to say anything, Eric?
I would think, Joe, just curious, so when you sort of made that initial pivot, you originally indicated there was some strong, a strong signal from the digital agencies. Just what has changed in terms of nice to have, versus and before it sounded like it was a must-have. Just more interviews to get a better understanding of that, or what sort of changed?
Yeah, we saw that we had interviews with small agencies and medium agencies. We talked to Lindsay Stone Briggs. We talked to one at MedWorks Accelerator. We talked to a lot of people here in Medicine in Brazil, and it seems that they have the issue of filling timesheets, and it doesn't seem that they want a better solution for that. It seems that they are happy what they have, although it's a pain. It's something they're not willing to change and make it better. I think they are happy on the way things are today. And one thing that I think our questions before were kind of biased, because maybe we asked the wrong questions and we got the feeling that it was like burning pain they had. Everyone says that they have pains with timesheet, but they already have systems that can fulfill the needs. So.
Okay.
Great. Hey, so we got about 3 minutes for our responses. Rick, why don't you go, because I know you had some comments about asking good questions.
Sure. Thanks, Idella. First of all, Zhao, congratulations on getting 10 interviews in that time period. That's what we like to see, and not only were the number good, but I think the quality was very good. And you detailed your questions very well, and I would like to see that from some of the other participants in this cohort, because I learned a lot from your customer discovery questions. They were very open-ended. You drew a lot of information from your interviewees as far as their pain, and you focused a lot more on their pain rather than your solution, which I think was very good. And in reading through all the interviews for all the participants, I didn't see that in all of them. I'm seeing very short snippets in some of them, and maybe you're doing much more lengthy interviews, but I can only react to what I read and what I see in the presentations and on Launchpad Central, and I just don't know if I'm getting enough of what you're learning through what you're transcribing, and I would just ask that everybody try and do that. And I don't want to take up too much time here with Zhao, but I felt that your questions and your transcribing of the questions and what you learned was very good, and I commend you for not just doing a quick turn around off the creative agencies. You've got to explore that a little bit further. You got a couple of nice to have but not must have take that further as you intend to, because you may find that that may not be the case with other agencies, maybe depending on the size of them. Certainly the law firms at this early stage look promising, but like you said, you got to dig deeper into that as well. And that's what I would encourage everybody as well is, take these questions that you have and then build off of those questions. Continue to dig off of what the answers are given to you so that you can really have a true learning experience when you do get the chance to talk to them.
Great.
So nice job overall. Thank you.
Ryan?
I'll go real quick. Awesome. Number one, I like that you're taking a horizontal problem, which is time tracking, and attacking it vertically, right, by agencies or law firms. Fantastic. I like that you're being aware of the way your questions are or are not biasing, and I agree with Rick that I love how you showed your questions or your assumptions, what you thought, what questions you had, and what you learned. It was really well done. 3 things real quick. Recommend that you focus on quantifying the pain. With a law firm, just because they're using an Excel sheet, what's the pain? I'd focus on their anxiety. What do they worry about today? Is it that they're losing unbilled hours? They're not billing stuff they should be. They're losing time per week, or they just can't roll this all up and get good visibility. Like, what's the pain they have with it? 2 is the customer segment. Law firms is too broad. Try to focus in. You mentioned 40. At what point does this become a problem? What size firm? How many assistants? How many lawyers? And also, how are they going to make a decision? Who are the decision makers? Who are the influencers? That's it. Good work.
Great. Great report. Thank you for the succinctness and a lot of information to help us respond to it. Great job. Okay, so next, Pradeep, let's go ahead and get you in. Are you able to hear us? If not, we'll go ahead and put you on hold and move on. Okay. Pradeep, I'm going to queue you up in a bit. In the meantime, let's go ahead and move on to Gift of Tongues. Why don't you go ahead and give us an update? And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and advance your slides for you.
Okay. Good. Yes. In the last couple of weeks, we didn't get as many interviews as we hoped to get actualized, and we've got some set up follow-up interviews with people who will be available, not quite available yet, but we did conduct 5 interviews, and so just as I say, we're continuing. I guess you can move on to the next slide.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
Yeah. We didn't really, at this point, do any changes in the business model canvas this time. Pete, is there anything? No. So then the next slide. Here's what we thought is the next. We thought we could continue along the lines we developed prior to the week of March 9th. And we also thought we could move into identifying an MVP with customer confirmation, and we did. Well, of course, that gets to the next slide. Here's what we did. If you can move into that. We conducted 5 more interviews, one of which I haven't posted yet, because I did it yesterday with, and laid the groundwork for, I would guess, 5 to 10 more that we hope to do at least that many within the next, in the next couple of weeks. And if you notice, we formulated our first ecosystem diagrams, and again, we started identifying a potential MVP and started trying to confirm that with potential customers. So we're looking at in one of them the one group, Karen Dolan and her group. They do ophthalmology eye examinations in third world developing countries.
Peru.
In Peru, it's a big one where they do it, and so and they have real difficulty communicating. They have like little sheets with medical vocabulary that they try to use, but it looks very awkward. And of course, it's very critical that they communicate perfectly with the patients. So I mean, we have something. It's really a must-have that we can offer them, and we are talking to them further, and hoping that we will. Well, getting ahead of myself, we hope to set up some classes in June that would serve as a model for the minimum viable product, MVP, that would address some of these concerns. And similarly, the missionaries, the church activities. There's an organization called Casas por Cristo, Houses for Christ, that does a lot of work, and of course we talked at some length with Pastor Waitley here in town. And I looked at some of their videos, and I mean, I could see looking at the one of the videos that they did with, to advertise their product to prospective missionaries. You could see it's most of what's in the videos is Americans, young American kids working together to build these houses, and only minimal contact with the actual Mexicans. There are a few Mexicans in there. This is one from their mission to Acuna, Mexico, in the lower Rio Grande Valley, right on the border. And clearly, I mean, as Pastor Waitley said to me when I talked to him a couple of weeks ago, they don't. It's a real hindrance. They can't really communicate very well with their host families, and they basically, from what I can tell from the videos and conversation, they've really given up trying. But it's a real need, and I would say that you'd see a very different kind of a video report of their activities. Not one mostly you're looking at American kids building houses with very little contact shown with the locals. And then Pete can explain the next diagram better than I can. If you just move to the next one.
As you can see, we sketched a lot on the whiteboard trying to do the ecosystem as a first shot. And so in addition to the church and missionary-based ones, we looked at the healthcare, and we focused on the doctor in the middle. So there are several things that the doctor does to fill up his day. If you look to the right, we got kind of 3 lines there on take a medical history, do a physical, and do therapy, where there's direct interaction with a patient. And then there's also, you might be writing prescriptions to the pharmacy, could be getting consults from specialists, or ordering tests and reading the tests from the lab or x-ray, doing dictation, interacting with electronic medical records, and also there's continuing education. And what we tried to do as well is say with the patient right below there is a smaller subset of non-English speaking patients. And with those, all of that interaction with the take history and physical and therapy has to go through an interpreter. And you also would have interaction with the patient to the pharmacist in the pharmacy when they're getting their prescription. So it was...
you guys have about a minute left.
Okay, instructive on what, on everything that happens. We didn't get the overlay what the opportunities are for language learning like we did on the church and missionary, where there's Rosetta Stone and such. But that's basically what we tried to do there as the first cut. I'll let you can get through the next, Bob.
Okay, well, you say we have only a minute left, I know?
Yeah. Yep, just a minute.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things we found, but I would say in terms of the minimum value product, we have figured out putting together 2 forms of it, a 10-week, 20-lesson program that would, for about $600 a student, but also what some of the interviewees indicated was they'd be interested in something smaller as well. So we're thinking of 2 forms of it that we could test out in this summer, like something for about half as long for half the price, for somebody who just wants to sample it, or a smaller sample, and then possibly proceed to something more. We got that kind of feedback from a couple of our interviewees. So it's really both seem to be candidates for the, and also we put one big risk to rest, mainly that marketing to consultants who are motivated will not be a problem and shouldn't be the biggest risk. Gentleman we talked to, Jason Voyevich, who's a marketing executive with Logic PD in Minneapolis and Boston, said that 5 years ago this might have been a problem, but now with LinkedIn, remembering that consultants want to be found, finding the ones who are motivated to learn languages, will be somewhat of a task, but it won't be too difficult.
Okay.
Well, there's more, but if
yeah, so just a quick 10 seconds. Tell us what you're going to do next week.
Okay, so we're shifting hard into the MVP product confirmation. I mentioned these two the courses that we want to get going in the summer. We're working to confirm it with the people we've and going deeper into the group, the church mission group and others. And we'll have more following up on the previous interviews. As I say, we're able to set up more, but we didn't actually get to some of the people we wanted to this time. And the interviews will be in all three customer segments that we've looked at.
Okay.
So, I mean, we have a whole bunch set in the process of being set up in these three groups.
Okay. Okay.
So that's it.
So let's go ahead and start with Rick. Rick, do you have some comments?
Sure. Robert, nice job on the quality of the interviews. Didn't hit the 10, which we're always striving for, but I thought the quality was very good. I would encourage you to continue to dig deeper, ask more open-ended questions, and if you'd be willing to share the types of questions that you ask of your interviewees, I'd like to see them, and I'd actually offer that to all of the participants, and that way we might be able to help critique and make even stronger questions so that you get more information from the interviews that you are doing. Value propositions, looks like from a couple of those interviews that making money is a key value for learning the language, and I think that one interview talked about being able to increase his billing rate to the customers and being able to serve more customers. So I think dollar signs equate with that for at least that person. As far as the consultants, certainly could be a definite possibility using LinkedIn, but keep in mind that consultants want to be found to sell their services and not to be sold to, so you're going to get some pushback on that, but that's all in good time. I think you really want to do what you're focusing on is get your MVP built and start to try and validate that and see how you can build off of that with your target market of your church mission and your consultants. So good work, but I think there's much more to do, and you seem to be on track for a good way of approaching that type of work.
Good, thank you.
Rick, you want to? Sorry, Brian, do you want to jump in?
Sure. Hey, guys.
Hey, Ryan.
So I like that a couple things, and you guys saw my long post to you a couple weeks ago. So I'm excited to see that you've done a couple things. One, you talked about picking a language, right? I think that's a big deal. One time I asked what language does this work for, and even though it works for everything, I think you're trying to hone in on something more specific. So I like that you're picking a language. I like that you're trying to map out the ecosystem. I think that with the churches, it's interesting. By the way, how long are those mission trips?
A week. Mostly a week.
The Casa por Cristo is a week. The I mission in Peru is 2 weeks, and they go 2 weeks every couple of years. So.
Right.
Okay.
But then, for example, the lady that I interviewed yesterday, she worked as a medical consultant in Ecuador, and she would go down for a month. For 5 years, she did that. So,
Right. And did those people that you talked to on that mission trip, did they purchase another language learning tool? Had they tried one and stopped using it? Had they purchased one?
To the one, well, as far as we know, they didn't do very much of that. I mean, I only spoke to the pastor.
But the ones in Peru did. They had some stuff that the diocese offered them, and then she tried a listening course that she bought and got frustrated with it.
Okay, okay. So she sounds like a good person to talk more to. If they haven't purchased something, they're not really going to purchase from you either. You know, everyone has promises, but the question is, have they actually put money in? So one thing, and we'll talk about it more in the presentation later, but I want to focus a lot less on, I just don't want us to focus too much on defining the product and what we'll be building. I want us to focus on selling it and understanding really the pain points of people that have tried other things and it's not worked for them, to understand emotionally what were they going through, what was their story, what anxiety did they have, what frustrations did they have, and really uncover kind of like what this customer journey looks like for these people that try, and where do they jump off. And if there's a common point where people are jumping off, they get frustrated at this point, you know, then you can focus on solving for that. So I want us to focus really clearly on customer stories and their pains, and less on the MVP. And we'll talk a little bit later about how you might be able to actually try to get some sales, which would be really fun.
Great.
We were jumping on the video we watched this week, which was now that you know what they're concerned with, you got to get to confirmation, you know, learn and confirm.
Yeah, confirmation.
So we're going with the confirmation. So, but good advice. We'll keep going.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of what you're learning from that video and what Ryan will augment, and we'll go back and forth. In the interest of time, I'm gonna suggest that, and I'm gonna do this with all the teams, that we're gonna sit down and have a one-on-one based on where you guys are at and our perspectives. That way we can help you with things like improving the communication of your customer ecosystem diagrams and talk through some steps that would help you meet the next tranche of funding, that kind of stuff. So, Eric, do you have any burning statements that you would like to make before we move on?
Yeah. All I'll say is I think Gift of Tongues moving in the right direction. You're really starting to focus on a language and specific customer segments. That's awesome. I want to reiterate what Ryan said, and it was said in that video that we sent out this week too for homework. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So when Ryan says, have they purchased in the past, try to solve the solution in the past by purchasing, that's a great indicator versus, hypothetically, would you pay for this in the future? And just all the teams sort of, just that slight difference in how you ask that question is important, and sort of who you're looking for to interview even. It's have they paid for some type of solution for this problem in the past is a good predictor that they're going to also pay for a new potential solution in the future. So that's all I'll say.
All right, thank you.
Can anyone hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay. I can hear you. I can't. Is anyone else talking or no? I can hear you.
I don't know if we lost Idella and Eric.
No, sorry. I muted myself.
There you go. Okay.
Go on when you're ready, Matt.
Okay, sweet. Starting off, we're supposed to encourage each other and stuff, so I just wanted to say a huge shout out to Gift of Tongues, and just starting from the first meeting to this one now, you guys started off with a huge clientele, and now you're really starting to focus in, and that's awesome to see, and that's awesome to go through this process. So thanks for being inspiring, even to me, and really honing in on who you want to sell to, and it's awesome to see. So congratulations on that. So, all right. So this is that's me again. My partners team has been fluctuating. Somebody is studying abroad this semester, and so I had a new person step up and helping me with customer interviews and stuff like that. His name's Kyle, and he's been a huge help so far. So I look forward to building my team. Do you want to go to the next slide? So just walking through some of the updates I made on the business model canvas, starting with customer segments. The 3 customer segments are students, school administration, and parents. But I added 2 very key segments that I think are now the top priority in yearbook advisors and students that design the yearbook. Because ultimately, these are the people, marketing, they make the big decisions. So I really wanted to start separating what the yearbook advisors want from what everyone else wants. Customer relationships. One of the things that I've been asking in my interviews is why did you choose this yearbook provider over anyone else, and why? And they've been saying it's a lot of things when smaller companies come in, they don't schedule well, and it's very much that relationship that they feel like they can contact them for anything, they'll always be there, and they don't get that kind of reaction. That's been kind of across the board, so I kind of put that up there as a big fact, is understanding the situations of schools, really know what they're struggling with, because every school is struggling with different things, but kind of they're on the similar topic. So really understanding their situation. The value propositions is kind of having the high-quality product. Things with curriculum. I touched on this last meeting with Live Yearbook, saying that one of the biggest things is school curriculum and schedule. One of the things that I found out is that a lot of the yearbook providers provide that. So they provide a schedule and curriculum for what the kids should be learning and what they should be doing. So, and then the rest is just kind of just highlights. For the sake of time, I'll skip forward. The one customer interview that kind of hit, I went through, I visited about 20 schools, and it's really cool. I've logged about 10 to 15 of them. I haven't logged all of them because I'm still kind of curving out what the big impact it was to me and the team. So I'll just touch on one that we did, and we finally got through, and I really understand now how to contact these people and how to get interviews in the mass time. So the hypothesis that we had going in is schools are struggling selling to students, but not sure the severity. So we don't know if 10% are buying them or 80% are buying them, or we don't know the qualitative kind of thing that we've been touching on. So I interviewed Elizabeth, who's the yearbook advisor for Mamie since 2001. She has a lot of experience in this area. What we learned was, above many other things, these interviews that I'm conducting are anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, so it's very in-depth and getting all the little details, which is great. So one of the questions I asked her, what are your major headaches throughout the year? One of the things that she said was getting getting students to buy the yearbook, which is kind of what we had. The next part was how they are constantly in debt. So she's a yearbook club, and I've been seeing a trend that in yearbook clubs, they have a lot more issues with debt than people with yearbook classes. Because I think once you have a class, you have a little more funding, you're able to fluctuate a little more, and it's just better funded and worked out. But schools with clubs don't really have that. No opportunity to advertise. So in this school is in Chicagoland area suburbs. So because there's a Maine East, Maine North, Maine West, and Maine South, they all kind of are in the same area, and all the school boards prohibit them to advertise because they would be going to the same businesses, and those businesses help in other ways. They don't need to help with the yearbook. So that's interesting to, I was able to talk to one of the board members and asking them, is advertising prohibited, or is you guys going to advertise prohibited? And they said that the school can't. So if a company came in with pre-advertised dollars that can lower their cost, or selling names and information, that might be something that they would look into to lower the cost and sell more of them. Legally selling candy is kind of funny. For their fundraising, they kind of they buy a bunch of chocolate and they have kids sell to students, but it's technically illegal because they have a food contract to where they can only sell that food that the food provider gives them for the school. So it's just kind of it's funny to think that they illegally sell candy just to try to get the yearbook down. They also borrow money from the principal. Like I said, they're constantly in debt. So at the beginning of the year, the yearbook sales that they generate, they give to the Jostens because they have to put down half of the amount at the beginning of the year, and then after March, their March deadline, they have to submit the second half. And they usually don't have the money for the second half, so they have to borrow that money. Out of a school of 2,000 students, they're only selling and ordering 600 to 500. So what we are doing next is finding other schools that have the same struggles and finding more yearbook clubs. And I think that what this means to us is we initially found our target customer. Next slide.
Yep, you got about 40 seconds left.
Okay, so just going really fast. This is my first shot at a customer ecosystem, with the yearbook advisors being the main priority. I had a bit scaling issues here as I talked to Idella with it. Just kind of the money revenue and then relationship processes are more of this has to do with that. So like yearbook advisors have to design the book and have to tell the students how to design the book, and everyone has like a kind of their hand in the product. The product is then moved from the students or from just the yearbook provider to the students. Parents give the money and so on and so forth. So our target customer, we've been calling them the struggling schools, the struggle buses. And that's the schools that are constantly in debt. They need a change. The segments that we're going to sell to are the yearbook advisors, because that's who they deal with. Yeah.
Great.
So.
Just the use of the word struggle buses sounds hilarious. I like it. Okay, Ryan, do you want to start this round?
Hey, great job. I was trying to take notes here. So one thing, a couple things. I love that you're really starting to learn from your interviews. You're talking about how good you're at doing those interviews and how you can get those meetings, and you're still learning new things, finding key points. I think if you keep this pace up, it's gonna be great to hear the same thing over and over. And that's when you've kind of like hit your diminishing returns. You found the key people, the advisors and the yearbook students. I love that. You identified yet another segment, which is yearbook clubs versus yearbook classes. Great job. And you really found the pain. You've narrowed down to the pain of the yearbook clubs. And there's definitely going to be, if you can find a way to price to them differently, to structure that payment differently, they're going to want to move. So I think you've really identified a big pain point for them. I also like the ecosystem, and you understand, how the influence works. What do you think your biggest risk is right now?
I think it's adjusting to the risks of the yearbook advisor in the schools. The schools that have Jostens love Jostens, and I think that that's why the targeting kind of comes into place, where who are we selling to, like the struggle buses, or that really comes into play with how to penetrate the market, and I think that's one of the highest risks. And getting improving. One of the things that I learned too is improving the sales strategy to students. Right now, schools try to do the same thing that they've been doing since 1920, selling to kids, and it's not the same thing. You have to have a better sales structure in order to sell the yearbooks to everybody.
Okay, so students still aren't bought in. All right, I don't have anything else. I think you should think about, if students are your highest risk right now, how do we test that, or how do you go about actually trying to put together an experiment and see what kind of commitments you can get from both students and advisors on this?
Yeah, real quick, I have a few interviews next week with the school that I just talked to, and the students that didn't buy it. I'm going to be asking them basically why they didn't buy it or what they think of it.
Good.
Great.
Good work.
Eric, it's your go.
Yeah, awesome job. I think the learning is evolving and getting deeper and deeper, which is great. The fact that you sort of have this first best customer segment that you're starting to be able to identify, with not just demographic information, but sort of behavior information is awesome. And it's sort of you're sort of qualifying that, and I think, if you can get 5 to 10 more of those type of that sub-customer segment to sort of commit or communicate that they're having the same problem, in debt problem with, they're a club and they have this debt problem. I think that is really great validation to know that you're targeting the right person. One question I did have is, so at the end of the year, if they're still in debt, who covers that difference? What budget is paying for that debt?
They called it the principal slush fund. I guess the principal has different expenses that he can distribute throughout the year, and they have to ask him to cover that. And then, like I said, at the end of the year, they're in the red then, and then the initial sales go to paying that back.
Okay. And is that, it seems like that's sort of working, though, halfway, right? It's a pain, but has there been pushback on that, or is that a painful process? Is that, you don't have to answer that, but it sounds like there is a pain, but the principal is bailing them out. So I think a little bit more learning on your value proposition and who you're sort of, what's the value prop, ultimately saving money, but they're getting bailed out. So it seems like it's partially working for them.
Yeah, they said that they are increasing the prices because of that, because they have to keep on borrowing from the slush fund.
Yep.
And that's the first time they increased them since 2001, and so that's kind of big.
Okay, cool. Well, great job. Keep it going. And looking forward to sort of hear more validation from that sub-segment that you're talking about, and then thinking about getting some commitment from the student and the advisor.
So we are over our teaching time, but Rick, do you have any final comments, anything different to add?
Just to keep it brief, Matt, I didn't see on your slides, how many interviews did you do in the last time period? Recall?
I did 15 interviews. I've logged, I think, 12.
Okay, good. Yeah, again, just I'm impressed that you've spent 30 to 45, 60 minutes on them. Just try and share as much as you can on Launchpad Central so we can see and get a better feel for the depth of the interviews, if you could do that. And obviously Jostens is very popular, as you said. People that have Jostens love them. And
yep.
That's what I would really try and probe more on, is find, why do they love them? What can you emulate that Jostens doing that may be able to endear you to some of these? It's obviously they have a great quality product. Maybe it's the service, like you mentioned. They get a call and they respond to it. They're very loyal to Jostens, and you've got to find a way to maybe steal some market share from them. And despite the fact that maybe people are going into debt in producing a yearbook, I'm not sure that the value proposition is going to be a lower cost. I think you got to be more in line with maybe a higher quality and better service. Just my opinion on that, but as you continue to do your interviews, I think you'll find the answer yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think actually the highest value proposition I want to go into is developing a sales strategy for the students, finding out why the students aren't buying it, and if I can show numbers of increasing students buying the product. Then
very good. That's a very good point. That would be a great value proposition to share with your potential customers.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Great, good work. Okay, so Pradeep, are you here? Great, fantastic. Why don't you go ahead and get started?
Okay, guys. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So I'm here at the Department of Defense, and sorry, it's not been a good connection. So just sort of keeping it brief, and we had 4 customer contacts since our last class, and I can talk about those. If you go to the next slide, and actually not much here. If you can go to the customer contact, the next slide, please. Yeah. So first, I interviewed John Cook. As you all know, WISES is also the technology transfer organization for the rest of UW institutes, except for the UW Madison. So I spoke to him about their IP management and the CRM process, the 2 separate processes that they have, and the role of licensing candidate research there. So I got some information and some of the hypotheses that we had about sort of coming up with a SharePoint-based model, I think would require quite a bit of infrastructure changes there. Some other things that we learned was that the qualification is really considered quite an art and intuition type of thing, for them to make a decision as to which companies may be more relevant or more qualified. So given the fact that we have had good contacts with WISES, I'm thinking that in a half-a-day ideation session with them to go through a qualification process for some of their candidates is something that I would like to do. So I did also have a call with Dr. Richard Chila from the Michigan State, and this actually was at this started when we were still trying to figure out how to make the contacts who can we have a substantive conversation with, and approaching him through his assistant, and we got some input from him on the licensing candidates on qualification. But at the end of it, he really said that okay, so who are you working with at WARF? And I'm gonna call them and see how this is going. So I think this is sort of the second time that a similar type of thing. So obviously this is a close-knit community, and people check with each other as to how their any new technology, new software that they're putting in, how that goes. So my thinking here is again, after we made some progress on this qualification, that I would go back to him. Go ahead to the next one. Yeah. So one of the other interesting development, and this is after I had the meeting with Idela and Eric about what you call the solution commitment. So I sent out an email immediately offering her to come in and spend some time and doing this qualification for some of the candidates. She actually responded within minutes and sent me keywords and agreed to a meeting, which is next week. So that's actually great that we have her time, and I think one of our associates too, for a few hours to work through that would give us some ideas. And independently, I also went back to M. John and asked him for his input on what would be some possible ways that we could qualify the company. So I have a flow chart that I can put together based on that. Next, please. Yeah. One of the other ones, I got an email back from David Brown. This was, I was working under the hypothesis that we could offer a per patent search, and we offered to do sort of a pro bono We took a few of their patents and the keywords and returned some results. But he really got back saying, well, your software is not there where we can do anything with it. So this invalidated, or at least at this point, are thinking about the per patent search model, and that I guess is good to know. So where we go from here right now is really focusing on this qualification piece, because this has been coming up now as a key value, key value proposition, as well as I would say part of the MVP. And I think my focus in the next couple of weeks would also be on the solution commitment, where this might be a good way to have a conversation going and say, well, can we take some of your candidates and can we run them through qualification process? That's where I am right now.
Okay. Thanks, Pradeep. So I'm going to start. I think it's my turn to start. So much of your feedback that you've been reporting on and receiving, and even in my recent email to you about my feedback from the group at Promega, all centers around qualification. Yeah. And even to the point where it seems people are pretty suspect, very apprehensive, skeptical, and refuse in some cases to even want to participate because they've been burned so much with having software that doesn't meet this need of qualification. So step one, it does seem very dire that any solution has to improve qualification, and what that means is going to be important to understand. So you said my focus in the next 2 weeks is going to be on solution commitment. I might challenge and say your focus is to do tons of interviews. I'd like to see 10 or 15 interviews with different tech transfer groups and really understand their qualification process and see if you can put together a diagram, I guess, a flow chart of how commonalities and qualification. And then I think even before solution commitment, just because people have been burned so much, I think if you will burn a bridge if you don't come to them with something that they have some confidence in beforehand. So that's my feedback, is more interviews, more understanding of the qualification, being able to communicate that before you focus on a solution commitment.
That's very helpful, yeah.
Okay. Eric.
What's interesting also is that when we talk to some of the other players here, they talk about keywords or semantics, but not qualification. Because it's a lot harder thing to do.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's one of those, it seems like it's a situation where people are telling you a thing, qualification, and then you have to understand, well, what does qualification mean? What does that mean to you? And maybe at one group, it means certain keyword searches because they're searching, their portfolio is targeting, a particular set of industries, and another team might be targeting something else, and so they have a different process to do that. And so you'll really have to define and understand what qualification means, and if there's some commonalities in that, and if that helps you narrow down your market. But I'm concerned that it's such a key thing, and people have strong reactions to this, that I don't want you to burn any bridges by not bringing something to the table that's new, because even the pushback of I have some software is enough for people to be like, I don't want to participate.
No, that's a good point. Yep.
Nothing to add at this point.
Okay. Let's see. I think it's Ryan's turn.
Hey, Pradeep.
Hello, Ryan.
Can you hear me? Hey.
Yep.
We actually found out that Pradeep and I have a good friend in common. So Pradeep, good job on doing some of these interviews. I can tell that we're selling too early just by the responses we're getting. So with the YSYS ideation session, I think that's a cool idea. Does John Cook and his team actually think this is a problem worth investing in? Are they willing to do that?
It's a much smaller organization, and we have a much better relationship. So I think we can certainly, work our way. And yep. So whether
just
they
as long
actually
as
want to make a change in their system or not, I think it would be a good session.
And isn't it a YSYS? You are a YSYS licensed idea, right? You already have a partnership with YSYS anyway.
We do, but because WARF and YSYS are separate, so there is some sort of an internal, thing there as well. But regardless, I think we will have an open door.
Okay. So with Michigan State, he thought you were selling to him, and you probably were, and he asked for a reference. I'm going to see how else you've been doing with, right? He asked to
no, actually, I
talk to Worf.
I had, given them the context. I had said that this is part of the Lean startup as well as some work that we've done with WARF, but and I wasn't really trying to sell, but he was very direct, and he says, well, what does the software do? Okay. And who's using it and what way?
So we got to the software.
Yeah.
That's
right.
That's going to be a problem. If we talk about the product, they're going to want to hear about it, and they're going to ask for, well, I'm going to go see how WARF is doing. And BYU, same thing. Thank you for contacting me. Not interested. So I agree with Idella. I think we're selling too early. I would not show people your website landing page. I think before anyone's going to buy, we need to quantify the opportunity and get to a benefit equation. And I can show you an example of that in the presentation today. So I agree with Idella about doing a lot more interviews and needing to understand what their current process is for and what their close rates are, and uncover how much effort that's going into, what are their license rates per month, how many people are actively pursuing those leads, understand how their funnel works today, and then we can put together a benefit quantification on if we will improve that by this %, here's the license in dollar amount of impact, So problem interviews and not talk about your solution at all.
That's sure. Yeah. Yep.
Great.
Pradeep, this is Rick. Interest of time, I'll just kind of echo what's already been said. I think more interviews, focusing on the problems and not the solution. I think Idella and Ryan kind of hit it on the head there. And just to be more descriptive on Launchpad Central and even in your slides, so we get a better understanding of really the conversations that you're having. Even, for maybe one or two of them, put the questions that you're asking on Launchpad Central. So you have to obviously do them for every interview, because every interview you're going to be using different questions, but the general sense of the types of questions that you're asking, so we can get a good feel. Are you probing for the problems? Are you digging deep and not necessarily trying to solve the problem right at the outset? And I think that would be helpful to all of us as team teachers.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Pradeep, and thank you especially for joining us while you're out of town. Thank you for the commitment for being a part of the process.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem, but thank you. Okay, last but not least, Team Tactical Athlete. I think Kyle is going to be presenting. Kyle, are you up?
I'm here.
Fantastic.
Ready to go. We have first slide here. The only thing I'll draw your attention to is we're at 24 interviews. We're probably one of those groups that's guilty of combining, but I don't really know how to manage survey information in the interview section, so that's something we can talk about later. We did 7 interviews. We went to Phoenix with the intention of collecting a couple of more interviews, but the flu bug hit one of our people that we were going to interview, so we never got out to the fire department. And then we have a number of interviews that are already lined up in the weeks to come. So that's the list that you see there. We also tried our first sort of survey attempt just to try to email some open-ended questions, more really to better understand some of the responses that we've been getting from people and to either validate or not validate what we thought it was trying to say. So that's kind of what we've been doing the past 2 weeks.
Great. And just,
Go to the next slide.
yeah. There you go.
Our business model canvas, we did not change this. We spent a considerable amount of time talking amongst us about are we at a point where we're narrowing down a minimum viable product, and that conversation is kind of what prompted some of our surveys. And so we never got back to changing the canvas, but we kind of think we're at a point where we're narrowing this down, which then may help us rechange what our customer segment is. But we seem to have 2 MVPs, which would be an orthopedic health network, and then a second one, we're not really sure how to characterize it, but something with continuing education. Both of those elements have emerged consistently as being somewhat valued or at least important to the people we've talked to.
Next slide.
So customer segment learning points, continuing with working on that box. This is what we learned from talking with Phoenix, Mesa. Actually, Scottsdale should be on there as well. I neglected to put that one on there. The one that canceled on us was Sun City. Hypothesis that we were thinking was, first of all, that we went to Phoenix and we met with Phoenix knowing that they would not be a customer, primarily because they're sort of what many consider our gold standard. We went there to kind of think about or learn, what makes them or how did they get to that point, to try to find what elements that we may want to consider that allows us to navigate our own path. So that's what we do with Phoenix. And Mesa and Scottsdale, both of those are mid-sized departments that believe they're in full implementation of the Wellness Fitness Initiative. But our hypothesis was that it was not in an integrated way. And what we essentially came out with was, my phrase the last time of box checking is that these departments are implementing the WFI, but they couldn't cite data to suggest if it was helping with any particular metric. So they felt good about the fact that they were implementing it, but they didn't have any idea of what it was actually what it was changing within their fire department. What came out of this for us was a prompting to where we reevaluated our MVP to be that provider network, and that's kind of what prompted a number of follow-up conversations we had. You can go to the next slide. So when we went to the value proposition learning, as we tried to narrow down this MVP, what we did was we sent out some surveys. We reached out to providers, business leaders who are not in this business, but just simply business leaders and owners, trying to identify how they look at metrics within their own world. And then we went to the medical providers who are in the pilot project here in Milwaukee and then asked the same questions. And then reconnected with Atlanta, whose interview was somewhat interesting to us because they didn't see a need for anything, but yet to us it was obvious. And then out of all of that, we sort of combed the data and came up with our first attempt at developing an initial sort of equation where we can start to place a value on what TAPI can do, and one is the OPN, which is the orthopedic network, and the equation that we came up with is the number of claims that are issued multiplied by the dollars that are saved from backfill. And if you apply that to Milwaukee, then you input the number of claims, and the number of that's saved from backfill is about 6,200. And so, and then you can do the same thing with what is the cost of injury reduction. I think it was, Ryan's been asking about injury reduction over the last couple of weeks and whether that's the most important thing. So we looked at that in terms of an equation, and then trying to figure out the the cost per injuries and then the total number of injuries that were reduced to try to figure out, what that reduction amount would be. So we've done the math with Milwaukee, and now we're soliciting the two factors that go into those equations from the different departments. We think we know what the factors are, but we want to verify from them, the number of claims and how much they have from backfill. So we kind of think we're in the right direction in terms of being able to place a value on what TAPI can provide, and then so we're going to try to test this out. Who is paying for this has been a question we've been asked, and it's essentially the fire departments are paying for it, and the fire departments pay for it through city budgets. So, that's a chicken or an egg. I'm not sure, the city's actually paying for it, but it's the fire department that's actually approving it.
You got about 40 seconds left.
Our ecosystem, we stuck with the same ecosystem for now to help validate our money equations. I haven't really changed it. You can go to the next slide. And this was our first attempt at a channel diagram after we narrowed down the MVP to two particular, what we think are products, which would be the orthopedic provider network and then our some kind of an e-commerce for online education and equipment purchases. And that's where we're at.
Great. Rick, it's your turn to go first.
Thank you, Idella. Kyle, I really like what you guys are doing. I mean, you're really getting the interviews, you're getting the quality interviews, asking open-ended questions, trying to validate those value propositions, and more importantly, even now you're trying to quantify them with your equations. And I think once you figure that out and you can quantify some of your value props, I mean, that's going to be huge for you as far as opening some doors when you get to the point of selling this. I mean, but right now you're still focused on information gathering and identifying the pain. I guess, just to encourage you to do more of what you are doing and finding out from some of these departments if they look at your program at some point as one more program to implement, or is it a time-saving, money-saving type of program, and to try and drill down and get that type of information from your interviews. But all in all, I think you're doing a great job with your interviews, and you're learning a lot through your discovery process. So continue it.
Right.
You made it. Was you say time saving and?
Yeah, time saving, money saving. I mean, how they view your program, because some person that's responsible for the department may look at it as, oh my God, I got to do another program, or is they looking at what you offer, and do they see it as a time saver in that, this is going to be a more efficient way of doing a WFI, or is it going to be saving us money through getting the people back to work more quickly or preventing injuries?
Okay.
What's going to be, how do they view TAPI?
Okay, that makes sense.
Great. Ryan, would you like to go?
Yeah, it's just hard to find my mic. Hey guys, awesome. First team to have a quantified problem. $50,000 from Milwaukee. Fantastic. Now we're talking. If you can keep doing that and validate, with other fire departments, do they know those numbers? Because if they have to get back to you, they're probably not. Are those numbers easily accessible to them? And just keep it up. You're quantifying, and it's awesome. The question to me then is, if it's 50 grand to fix Milwaukee, think about how can you fix it and how do you sell that, tomorrow, right? And think about how would you price that based on cost of savings. So maybe it's nothing up front for them. Maybe it's percent of that 50 grand.
Yeah.
Keep it up. Awesome.
Thank you.
Great. Eric, would you like to make some comments?
Yeah. Everything that Rick and Ryan said, and the only thing, great job. The only thing I'd add is, and I guess more of a, don't have to answer this right now, but more of a brain teaser or a thing to be thinking about, is who who's the best first customer segment? And I guess I'm still confused. Is it somebody who's already trying to do this, one element of it, like the Mesa group, and they just don't have good metrics? Or is it some other sub-segment? And it's sort of not exactly clear to me who, are you going to try to target first on this in terms of they're already trying to do it. That probably makes sense as like obviously a qualified customer. They've already had some budget allocated towards solving it, but sort of where is it breaking down and what elements breaking down can you come in and sort of target first and help the most right away? So something to think about there. Maybe you already know the answer, but I'm still confused on that.
Yeah, that's what we're exploring. I think we had a turning point mid-week, or certainly after we talked to Mesa and Scottsdale, and we got the surveys back. And my guess is you're going to see a change in what those customer segments look like to be a little bit more refined. We're just sort of out of sync with information we're getting versus are we ready to change our customer segment. Now I think we're a little bit more in line. So hopefully clarity will come next week.
Great. Great, guys. Just one final comment, and that is that Eric and I were talking earlier and think that you could probably combine some of the information on slide 5, your customer ecosystem, with this channel draft channel diagram, because I actually found this slide on 6 to be the most helpful. It was the first time, and maybe it was the first time you guys were understanding where TAPI fits into this ecosystem. And so
Yes.
if you're adding on then the influencers, the pay process, all those kinds of things to this channel diagram, I think this is actually going to communicate more effectively where you guys fit in the ecosystem versus 5. So
Yep.
the other thing I want to comment on is it's totally fine if you guys are putting together a bunch of interviews because the way you guys are structuring it is as what we want, is what we thought, this is what we did, this is what we learned, here are our next steps, and you're writing conclusions, and you're giving us some quantifiable information. So for all the teams, if you guys want to combine interviews, if it makes sense, right, you did a lot of people in a short period of time and you're combining interviews for, the sake of saving writing time, that's fine, as long as you're really getting down to the meat and potatoes, the quantifiable value propositions and the next steps based on that. So that's doing great, guys. Well, we made it through all of the team presentations. Thank you guys for your hard work these weeks. We are continuing to encourage you to do more customer interviews. I'm just going to briefly put this up. Last time we talked about the scorecard and where you were at in that process, and so Eric and I sat down and talked a little bit. Team using, we didn't have, since you guys are making the pivot and just learning, we didn't have comments for you guys just yet. But for the rest of the teams, we went here and made a red, yellow, green kind of map of where you fit related to the different steps towards the first 45% tranche of funding. And I'm not going to go through each team. This is just a snapshot, and this is also a snapshot based on our understanding before your presentations and after you were explaining some things. But I think for the most part, everybody is doing well. There are some things that you can be doing some deeper learning on that might help change the greens, the reds to yellows, and yellows to greens. Oh, sorry. There you go. I had the wrong thing up. Now you guys can all see it. So like I was saying, to change the reds to yellow and the yellows to greens. And what we think will help is if we set up some time to talk with you individually about where you're at, make sure to talk about things like your customer interviews, the customer interviews that you have been doing, want to do, the questions that you're asking to help make sure that you're getting the deep enough learning towards the next 2-week interval, because like I said, we really only have 2 sessions left before your final presentation. And just as a marker, I think in the last 2 cohorts, There were several teams by 2 months into it who were asking for the 45% tranche of funding, and I think part of it is if we increase our interviews, then we'll get there a little bit faster. So I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I did want to just give you a snapshot for you guys to look at, and I'll set up some times that we can meet with you at your own schedules to talk about where you're at and what you might do in the next 2 weeks to kind of get you towards that goal. Let me pause there for a minute and ask if Eric, Ryan, or Rick have any additional comments to make before we move on.
This is Eric. All I'll say is good work. I think continue to have one-on-one conversations with myself, Adela, Ryan, and Rick, and looking forward to continue to sort of build momentum. We should be sort of feeling some momentum building. Now that we're getting more familiar with the process, we're starting to get more familiar with how to get customer interviews, and if we're asking 3 referrals after every customer interview, we should start to be able to build up some customer interview momentum and learning and focus. So keep up the good work, and I think we're starting to build a little bit of momentum here, which is great to see.
And just one final, sorry, go on.
Idella, just one comment. I'd just say, Idella and Eric and Ryan, myself, we're all have a vested interest in seeing all of you succeed, so don't hesitate to reach out to us at any time, in between sessions, so that we can work with you, as Idella and Eric plan to do, one-on-one, and just bouncing things off of us. I mean, we'd be more than happy to share our insight on that, going beyond these formal presentation sessions.
Hey, Idella, this is Luis. Are you gonna? Can we get this sent out? This little sheet here?
Yep, most definitely.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to add too that I've made this comment on a few people's slides. With the learning you guys have done, it's time to probably start honing in on your business model canvas. Converging some information, cleaning things up. You don't ever want to delete anything, because it deletes everything related to that, but you can begin to, maybe validate some hypotheses based on the learning you've done. So with that said, I thank everybody for the good work. Ryan is now going to talk to us a little bit about solution commitment, and this is a great opportunity to get some information and start thinking about, based on the feedback you've been receiving, what might you try to test for solution commitment for your own idea. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and give Ryan the presenter controls so that he can show his screen.
Ready.
There you go.
All right, you guys see me?
Yeah. Yep.
Good to go. All right, so I'm going to run through here as fast as I can. Hold on to your seatbelts. And if I need to skip some stuff, I will. I left a little bit of the problem validation in here as well, just because I know some of the groups are on that and going through that. So here we go. Ready? Let's do it. So we all have awesome ideas, and we know we've heard that that it's hard, and we keep hearing that 90% of new products fail, but we don't often talk about why lean startup. And I just want to introduce to you just the reason why, give you a principle behind why we're doing what we're doing. Hopefully give some more context and meaning to it. So, do you guys believe you're weatherman? I sure don't. Every time there's a hurricane in the Caribbean, you always see a map like this on TV, right? And you got the hurricane over here, and it follows this nice track with yellow dots out here. But you notice there's this cone of uncertainty, we call it, in red. And the further out you get from where the hurricane actually is, the bigger that cone gets and the wider it gets. And the weatherman likes to show this nice diagram, but really he's clueless. He's got no clue. Here's what really happens. Okay, he doesn't really know if it's going to hit Cancun, if it's going to hit the Gulf, the Panhandle, the Carolinas, or Boston. He's really got no clue. And the problem is we really can't predict the future, right? So one of the principles behind Lean Startup is that risk increases over time. And we're exposed to a lot more risk the further out we go. Big bets are subject to high risk, right? And the cost of failure also increases. The further out you go, the cost of failure goes up. So picture yourself, I don't know if any of you are bow hunters, I'm not, but if you picture a target out in the field, let's call it 75 yards out, okay? And you got one arrow, and you pull the arrow back, and you aim, you only get one shot, so you've got to be really precise on when you let go of that arrow. It's right on target, and you hope and pray that you execute it properly. The problem is, even if you do everything right, even if we do everything right with our business, we're going to be subject to a lot of things that aren't under our control. And here's what happens. You're going to miss that target, I guarantee it, because the target's moving, okay? Customers' expectations are constantly changing. The needs of customers are constantly changing. Matt, with your student stuff, right? What's happening on those high school phones is changing all the time. Every 6 months they're on a different app. The technology is changing rapidly. The systems that we need to integrate with are changing. The third parties are everything's changing. And the further out we go, the more likely that our targets are going to move. So there is a solution to this, and Lean Startup follows it. And the whole solution is shooting at closer targets, okay? By shooting at closer targets and firing multiple arrows, it doesn't matter if we don't hit bullseye, because we'll at least be on target. And if those targets move, we can track with it like this, okay? So that's really the principle behind Lean, is we do things in really short bursts, and we see what happens, and then we adjust, all right? We don't know what customers want, but we like to think we do. We can't predict the future, and executing the plan and staying busy is not progress, but sometimes we think that way. So it's kind of breaking down our view and being humble enough to be wrong and adjusting our arrow, all right? So Lean Startup, obviously I know you guys watched videos on this, and this is review, but I want to make sure that it's learning and then confirming. So it's getting customer input. That's why we do all these interviews. And then we go do sales and figure out and validate, and we confirm whether we're right or we're wrong. And it's important to be able to be humble enough to be wrong, so we can adjust. So that's what we're doing here. Early adopters, I know we've talked about this. Idela's talked about this. This is really what we want to, who we be talking to. If we talk to someone that asks for, a success story or who are our competitors, they're not an early adopter, and you should stop talking to them. They're a majority buyer. Okay, early adopters they welcome risk because they're trying to do something. They're trying to achieve a goal that no one else has got to yet. Okay, they're trying to do stuff that no one else is trying to do yet. Here's how I look at Lean Startup. Number one, and it follows exactly pretty much the funding tranches that you guys are receiving, is a high-value problem. Have we found a problem that's worth solving, right? And number two that we're going to talk about today is how do we get customers to commit to our proposed solution without actually building it, which is really cool. So getting the solution commitment. Really quick, empathy, we've talked about that. I'm going to skip some of this. In our problem interviews, we've talked about not talking about your solution because everyone is lying to you, including your mom. I hope all of you watched that video that Idela sent out. It's called the Mom Test, and it tells you an approach on how to ask questions in our interviews so we don't get compliments, so we don't get lies. Compliments are free, and we shouldn't listen to them. We want to talk about the past, not the future. So not would you do this? Never ask that. Would you do that? Don't ask that. It doesn't matter because what they say they'll do and what they'll really do, those are not the same thing. So the past is the best predictor of the future, as Eric mentioned. All right, so let's keep rocking here. Creative problem interviews. I'll come back to this if you want, but there's a cool story here about how you can get some interesting problem interviews and get really creative with them. But I know you guys have already been doing that. The ecosystem. I want you to realize how important this is because one of Steve Blank's groups actually went through the exercise of making an ecosystem, and they were able to triple their price because the whole market was selling to the sales department, but then they realized that the marketing department of these same companies had a separate budget, okay? And they were able to triple their price by selling to both departments at the same time. So it's the power of the ecosystem. All right, solution commitment. What is the minimum proposed solution that customers will commit to? This is the exciting stuff. So when we talk about MVP, the term MVP has really been like overloaded. What really comes first is sales, not building an MVP, not scoping it out and figuring out how much it costs to build. What matters is what's important to other people, and we put the cart before the horse if we build and focus on us, the solution. What we got to do is focus on identifying what's the match between the problem and something that's going to match them, and that's sales. That's the only way we can really test that and get commitment from people. So when you look at a company, this is every business. And I love this view, and you've probably seen this before, but really when we're talking about solution commitment, we're talking about everything on this side of the funnel. So it might be testing, will people visit our landing page? Can we acquire people versus, over AdWords? Or it might be, let's just go right to the people and sell them by hand. So it depends on your business and where the highest risk is, where on this funnel you're going to be testing first. So I'm going to run through some examples for you of some non-scalable MVPs. I don't like to say low fidelity. I like to say non-scalable. So non-scalable examples are going in and doing AdWords, buying Google AdWords ads, and putting up a landing page and seeing if you can test the front of your funnel. What's the cost of acquisition? So if cost of acquisition and finding customers is a problem, you test with this. A video MVP, so Dropbox, check this out. So Dropbox actually has a very complicated piece of software, and to build that was very expensive. To get an iPhone, an Android, my Windows machine, and my Mac to all seamlessly sync files back and forth while things are being modified is actually a very complicated technical problem. So instead of building it, what Dropbox did is they built a video MVP. Okay, it's totally fake. He recorded a video of him on his desktop and then drew on top of the video a screen of what it would look like, and he pretended to interact with this application, but it was just drawn on the screen. It looked real, but it wasn't real. Okay, he sent this out, and it went viral, and over 700,000, it could have been more than that, at least 700,000 people committed to the sign-up page for Dropbox before he ever wrote one line of code. Okay, that's solution commitment. Clickable mock-ups, so if you get some kind of mock-up that's clickable, you can test with that. You can do some user experience testing with that. An app demo is another way to go. One of my favorites, okay, is Wizard of Oz and Concierge. Love this idea. So here's what Zappos did. Okay, Zappos, if you guys know them, they are a online shoe retailer. It was when buying online wasn't quite as comfortable as it is today, and their value prop is you don't need to worry about returning the shoes because we'll do free shipping, okay, back. And to actually get that and get, shipping carrier contracts with UPS is a long process. So here's what he did. He put up a website, out-of-the-box e-commerce website, took no more than a couple days to get set up, put 6 shoes on there, and drove traffic to it. And guess what? People actually bought the shoes. So an order comes in, he prints it off. What does he do? He's sitting in his basement. He walks over to the equivalent of Foot Locker, buys the shoe, takes it home, unboxes it, puts it in his own box, and ships it. Okay, and that's what we call Wizard of Oz MVP. Wizard of Oz MVP, it looks real. I thought I was at this real company called Zappos when really it's just one guy switching packaging in the background. Okay, so there's ways to get people to commit and actually purchase and execute sales without having a product at all. I have some other examples, but let's keep going. The whole goal here is to get pre-orders, capture commitments, or actual sales, but non-scalable sales. Just one-offs is okay. All right, so here's a growth hack. So this app called Robinhood, okay, didn't actually build the app. Again, he didn't build the app. He built a landing page like this, and he drew a fake screen of what it might look like, and all he has is one value proposition. It looks like this: 0 commission stock trading, stop paying $10 for every trade. In other words, free trades. And he has enter your email address. Okay, but he used this this program called Untorch, which not many people know about, and here's the results of another company using the exact same tool. Is they were able to get 150,000 users in 30 days. 150,000 people to put their email address in saying, I want that, right? When you go to an investor with 150,000 signups, or in Dropbox's case, 700,000 signups, you have a lot stronger case than I think someone wants to use this app. Okay, the way this works is it's viral. So when you enter your email address, it says, hey, you can get early access if you refer your 5 friends. You type in 5 email addresses, and they get it, and they sign up and get their friends, and that's exactly how you drive this kind of growth over here in 30 days. Pretty darn impressive. So when people talk about MVPs, I talk about MVPs as in, what's the minimum time to value? What's the minimum time to deliver value to a customer without a product? So Wizard of Oz, it looks real. Flintstone car looks real. Actually, it's just my feet under there. It's just me repackaging stuff. It's one guy behind a curtain. Okay, this is what we call Wizard of Oz or Flintstoning. It looks real, but it's not. So when we talk about MVPs, here's how the wrong way to do it, which is I'm going to buy a tire, I'm going to build a frame, I'm going to build the body, and then in the end I'll have a car. And you'll notice that customer sees no value, none, until the very end, right? That's what we call waterfall, and that is exactly what we don't do. This will be shooting at that target, 75 yards down the way, okay? What we want to do is we want to deliver value to customers right away. So if the job that the customer is hiring you for is getting from point A to point B, what's the minimum it takes to do that? Skateboard, right? It might not be as fast, might not be as sexy, but they get their job done, right? It might be you picking them up and giving them a ride there. That's the concierge approach. Concierge is you helping a customer one-on-one. Okay, it's non-scalable, but it doesn't matter because you're delivering value. So we want to reduce the time to value and deliver value as fast as possible, so that we're delivering value to customers, and all we're doing is automating more of it as we go. So it might start out even over here. Step 0 might be just me helping a customer, giving them a ride. Next might be giving them a skateboard. All I'm doing is I'm slowly automating myself. You see what I mean? So we start with a human and we end up with automation. with a real product. So what's the scalable MVP for a cake? Anybody? Big wedding cake. This is the non-scalable version, cupcake. Okay. Minimize time to value. So Homology, a startup in Chicago who won the Lean Startup Challenge last year in the fall, came out with this website. Looks like this personalized community matching service. All it is one guy in the basement who goes and helps people. Guess how much revenue they generated in the same amount of time that Ideadvance is running? Booyah, 10 grand. There they are in Chicago when they won. They sold and serviced customers manually and had $10,000 in the bank, and they had a sales pipeline of $17,000. So this is totally possible to make sales without an actual product, with very minimal things, as long as we know what the real pain points are and how to package and propose a service at a price that they'll purchase. It doesn't matter if we're losing cash on that sale, right? My time's a lot more valuable than helping someone cross the street, but it doesn't matter because I'm validating that they will pay for that service. All right, I talk a lot about benefit equation, and I wanted to give you guys some ammunition here. So here's a benefit equation that I use to really validate an idea that I had working with a friend of mine, and he would be the customer. I was going to sell to him, and I actually realized that this wasn't a sizable market opportunity and abandoned it. But I want to walk you through briefly how this works, and think about how you guys can apply this to your companies. Okay, so unit economics. This would help a record keeper. So this is a 401k record keeper. Basically, get new people in the 401k. Okay, so it's to increase the number of participants at a single company, at an employer, to participate in their 401k plan. So here's I'll run it through it real quick. The record keeper makes $40 per year for new participants. Okay, that participant I'm averaging, and I know this is a factual number by talking to him. Participant would be retained for, I'm guessing, like they would stay with their employer for 4 years. Okay, the lifetime value of a new employee enrolling in the 401k plan is $160 to the record keeper. And I came up with a way to price it, and I was saying that if we took $56, that the profit to the record keeper would be $104 per new participant. All right, and then this is just some cash flow stuff, not really important. So $104 is what I was thinking what they would get. So if you think about, let's talk about one record keeper. So that was per participant. This is called unit economics. Over here, if they have 500,000 participants, okay, and 65% of them are actually of those employees are actually enrolled, then the employees not enrolled is 270,000 people. If all of them enrolled, the total opportunity is 28 million. But I'm not going to assume that I can enroll every employee. It's not going to happen. Here's what I'm guessing. I'm saying, hey, if I can increase the participation by maybe 4%, so go from 65 to 69% enrolled, right? Then the expected lift would be about 3.2 million, okay, over those 4 years. But I'm assuming that really I can only get 15% of those employers to actually engage with me, and so the opportunity really is only 480 grand for that record keeper in profit, and 260 grand to the startup. It sounds like a lot, but then when I do a bottom-up market sizing, if I take the top 10 record keepers and they each have 3.5 million employees on average, blah, 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 the market size was really only 18 million. 18 million in total market size. And initially it sounded great. Then I'm like, well, 18 million is not a big enough market at all, and it's not. So I abandoned this opportunity. But I hope this gives you some understanding of, Tactical Athlete and Pradeep. You guys are doing some B2B stuff, right? What's the value that the customer would receive on each new licensing opportunity, right? And then, how much lift do you think that you can actually deliver? Right, we think we can decrease the time to recovery by X weeks. Turns out to be this much money. We think we can increase the conversion rate on licensing by this %. Turns out to be this much money. And now you can have an actual conversation with the customer about what their expectations are and where you think you can deliver value. Solution interviews. I'm following an approach here called customer-centric selling. The book is really good. It's probably too much for you guys to pick up if you're not going to be selling all the time. But I'm gonna give you a quick high level of how it works. Customer-centric selling. So a lot of people when they sell, the reason why sales guys have such a bad rap. And Peter, you're probably laughing because I think you had your own company doing sales, I believe. People push their products, right? Well, it does this, and it does this, and it does that, and that's not what people want. People want to be served. People love to buy, but they hate to be sold, right? So if we give them an opportunity to get what they're looking for and achieve their goals, it's not about our product, it's about them. So let's start off with understanding their goals and confirming that they have the problem. And then we talk about feature validation. How do we validate a feature? And this is a really cool way to validate one feature at a time without actually showing anything or building anything. So here's an example. First you start out with a context. Right, and I'll show you this. This is happening at the very end of a conversation. This is not happening at the beginning. But when asleep at night, so here's the context, right? You get them to picture themselves in that environment. When asleep at night, and you give them the goal. Would it help you and your family to feel more safe? Is the goal. If we provided a device to monitor your home for carbon monoxide gas and woke you up in case of an emergency. Oh, I guess that would make me feel more safe, right? So context, understanding what environment and what situations are they going to be in when they're going to need that. What are their goals going to be? What are they trying to feel? What are they trying to achieve? And how would that be delivered to achieve that? So pricing. Never ask what someone's going to pay. Never do that. And ask for a commitment. We'll talk a little bit more. Goals call. I think Pradeep, I shared some of this with you as well as maybe one or two others. I'll come back to this. In customer-centric selling, what we're talking about is really understanding their goal. Okay, and if you get them to talk about what their goals are, and this works really well in B2B, is how do you plan on achieving that? What are the key activities that you're working on right now? Where are the highest impact areas? And try to get them to talk about what they're working on, what initiatives they have in place, what challenges they have, and what capabilities they feel they need. So from today to the goal, if you can help identify where the challenges are, what they're looking for, and then these are your capabilities of what you're able to deliver, where that all comes together is that usage scenario. Would you and your, would it help you to when trying to keep commitments, would it help you to meet expectations if we provided you X? Okay. And talk about, understand the time. How important is that? What priority does this have? What business impact would that have? What would be the value of being able to do that? What would it enable you to do? Ask open-ended questions. What and how are the prefixes on how to do that. I can show you how to ask better open-ended questions. And that's some of the stuff I wanted to talk through. A lot of the stuff that we talked about can apply to all of your companies. And if you want, if we have some time, we can probably open up and talk about how that fits. But Idella, I hope we covered some of the stuff that you were hoping to cover today.
Yes, that was great. Thank you so much, Ryan. As I mentioned in my email to everybody, I wanted to give you all a chance to kind of toss some ideas out there and get some feedback on your own solution commitments. Your book, I know that you're probably getting close to that point. Have you given some thought to what some solution commitment tests might look like and what might be the things you'd be looking for? Oh, that's right. Eric reminds me that we have the pilot contract, and I think I sent that out too in my email. That's another method to test a solution commitment. I know some of you are encountering people who want to run a pilot program, and many cases a pilot program is a free program. But Eric has seen some models where you can initiate a pilot program and convert that into some kind of solution commitment. Actually, why don't I let Eric step in since he kind of brought the idea to the table in the last session. Eric, do you have some additional information to add to that?
Yeah, sure. So I can't remember. Maybe we sent this out. If not, we will send it out again. But a pilot, I think, commitment is great. It's a pilot contract, so it's a non-binding contract. But you, in that contract, it outlines clearly what you believe to be the problem that you're solving and what the solution for that problem is. And you basically get your potential pilot customer to also sign off and agree on that. So it sort of clarifies that clearly. And then you outline what the pilot is, what are the deliverables, the time frame, and with the expectation that they, if you deliver X, Y, Z, that they will commit financial whatever going forward. So we can talk through that individually, but that's just another example of a sort of sales commitment in quotes that could be effective. Again, defines clearly what the problem and solution is, and then what's the specific deliverables on a pilot.
So Matt asks, how should we transition from interviewing Payne's learning to getting a commitment?
Great question. It's going to depend on what you want to test. It really, really does. And that's why when we ask about what your highest risk is, Matt, I think we talked about in the chat a little bit about if your highest risk is student engagement. First, might want to validate that with the advisors. Would it be helpful for you to if students were engaged? What would that enable you to do? But secondly, maybe you want to run an experiment to see if you can get those students, either those yearbook clubs or yearbook students, engaged, and run an experiment. Right? I don't know what that is. If that's a landing page, if that's emails, if that's unlock something, when we like unlock your school. So when I talked about this right here, one way to spin this is, if they have their own school, they can unlock their school with this cool capability. Your book, whatever your value prop is, unlock your school. This, we only need this many more students clicked, right? If you can get all these students clicked, you got something. You got interest.
Yeah, that could be another separate thing too. Is like doing something like this where you communicate with the school and kind of having them share some screenshots through my application of what the yearbook would look like, and seeing if students really care in the middle of the year what the yearbook will look like, or if they do not.
Yep. Figure out some kind of test. Pete He's asking a good question. If a customer wants to buy the product now, when do we get to ask how much they will pay? It's a great question. My suggestion is just to ask them to pay, and you put the price forward.
Okay.
Asking for
Which is what we were already do. Which is what we're already starting to do.
Great.
We might have a little bit of a confusion on if you say don't talk about price, or get commitment before you have a product. We're still trying to get confirmation that this MVP is what they want. But then if it's like, well, are you ready? Because I want to learn Spanish. It's okay. Well, how much would you pay for this? Well, I'll pay $600. Or do we say it's $600? That's it. Might help just on definition of what are we talking about and how do we confirm that MVP, because I think we're getting closer, but we don't really have the total product definition. But we in our minds we have a real good idea, but we want to confirm that without polluting the water.
Yep. It's important, I think, to identify, number one, is churches your top priority, right? Is our mission trips your biggest market? I'd figure out that before investing in this side. So make sure we got the right customer segment. And then, if you talk about pricing, so here's something that I found useful. There's a framework out there called Jobs to be Done, and the way it works is it's really trying to understand why people buy, how people buy, the existing options. So the existing options, remember that milkshake example we talked about one time? I gave that milkshake example. Where they bought milkshakes for breakfast. You wouldn't expect that. And the things that they tried were donuts, banana, yogurt, Snickers, bagel, cream cheese. And to understand, no one is going to evaluate you in a vacuum, right? They're comparing you to another solution, other options that they're going to consider. And really understand people that have bought those other items. How is it working for them? And you're going to understand their anxiety, what they're going through. You're going to understand really what they're trying, where they're having those problems, and then you can position your product based on where their current options are failing them, where they fell off the rails. Because that's what you're selling, is to do something that they can't do today, right? Maybe I quit after 2 weeks,
But I think what we're seeing is that the church mission market segment is not the biggest.
Okay.
But I think it's probably it's one with an immediate pain point, and there's since this is a product that we really have to develop and deliver face to face, and we have a local community that we can do it, that it seems like a good market segment to test it with, knowing that the scalability of it is going to come from, this is the other markets might be more scattered, but we thought we could dial in on one that's a little closer to home, right. But there's a real pain, but we still haven't dialed in on how much they'll pay for that. So it's a little bit. I hear what you're saying about the market and the test. We want to make sure we're not fooling ourselves. But I think what we got to do is if we can get them to pay, great. But we got to be. I think we're identifying a risk that since it's a small segment, it might be. There's a risk that it's not representative of the bigger market segment. We got to figure out a way to ask that.
Mm-hmm. Adela, you asked me. Go ahead.
I don't know if that will slow us down too much, but it's. I hear what you're saying. Go ahead.
Well, Adela asked for this, and I had this slide, and I just quickly recreated it from memory because I think I deleted it. So there's different types of getting solution commitment, right? There's people that give you compliments, and that's free, and that's meaningless. Because compliments are free; it costs them nothing to give, right? If they can give you introductions, that's something else. If they give you a verbal, if they give you a letter of intent, if they do a pilot program, if they actually pre-order with a Groupon style, which is you pay now, but you don't get it till everyone else is in, okay? Pre-order solo, which is buying it in advance, and actually paying. You know, so one option is, I don't know how your stuff is delivered, Gift of Tongues, if it's delivered you know, in a workshop or whatever, but you could try, if it is a workshop, you know, sign up now, you know, first 50 people get this discount or some incentive for urgency to get them to try to sign up.
That's a good thought. Yeah, but we're at a stage where we're just beginning this kind of activity. And all of that is very helpful advice, and we should know within the next few months exactly, you know, exactly how to proceed. Because, I mean, we're just actually at the point where we're actually looking for customers. I mean, on a larger scale, you know, on a systematic way. So.
Eric and Idella and Rick, I'll pause for comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying, Pete and Robert, is in line with what Ryan's saying. I mean, Ryan's first suggestion was that you evaluate which customer segment is a key customer segment. You have some, you know, information to suggest that missionaries are a good first customer segment, but then you have to ask yourself, is this really a reasonable market opportunity? Taking the suggestion of the benefit equation that Ryan mentioned earlier, right? And so maybe it is a good customer segment with some pain, but maybe it's not a big enough market, and maybe it's better for you to kind of take a look at some other ones. Maybe it's the consultants. I don't know. We can talk about this a little bit later. But once you get a sense of where you might want to test based on evaluating if it's a good return on investment for yourselves, then you can test these things like solution commitment. So where the consultants are, you know, maybe you're contacting them through LinkedIn, as you discovered and reported on Launchpad Central, and you're saying, hey, if you sign up for this class, you know, in the next, you know, 10 days, then you'll get this, you know, opportunity, right? And you can see how many people register, right? So that's a solution commitment, as Ryan was saying. So I think we're still, well, I'm just going to pause there and say, step one, figuring out if that's the most reasonable market, the best customer segment to target first based on the interviews and the market opportunity, and second, figuring out a solution commitment test to evaluate that.
Class that we're likely to have is likely to include people from both of these segments, if not all three. That's just the start, and then we see what comes after.
I'm a visitor. I mean, I would try to run a local test, and you could see how quickly, before you even like schedule what the course looks like, see if the easiest, fastest way to get 10 people to pay money in advance for a class, and is it from a consultant's customer segment through LinkedIn, or social marketing? Is it through a newsletter, through the missionary network, and you know, targeting specifically the missionary customer segment network, or maybe, I don't know, some other customer segment?
But it looks like it's the first class will be a mixture of those groups.
But what they're saying is that now we need to go out and say, get them committed to doing it. We've
Yeah,
got one who
all
said,
right.
you know, because we were trying not to say what the price was. We were just saying, what do you want? And then he said, well, like a class would be good.
Right.
And then like how many classes? Like 20 if we could do it twice a week. And then it's like, okay, this is all good information. And he goes, when are you going to do it? Because I want to do it.
Right.
You know, so that's now we got to confirm that with on the church side. So we don't. I haven't. You know, what we can do. So.
Give me your credit card number.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you can always, like, there's lots of ways. I mean, if you're doing this through your own personal network, you have to be careful. But if you're doing it through some anonymous network, you know, you could say, sorry, class is full, but you still understand that they committed. You know, they gave you your credit card information, and that's all you're testing at this point. And you could validate lots of things, you know, specific customer segment. You could have, without getting too tricky, you could have multiple price points that should randomly show up, you know, or you sort of ask, you know, $200 for this, for the same thing, 500, 1,000, and again, we're trying to do this before you even build it, you know, and how can you get clear on which customer segment is more interested in paying up front, or, you know, paying.
Well, that's exactly what we're going to find out in the immediate future.
So we're thinking if we actually have a little revenue stream while we're testing our MVP, which is testing our prototype in the next part of Ideadvance, an investor likes that.
Yep.
Or not just my mother that bought it. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just
we
want
won't take
to
up any more of your time. We got
No,
our task.
that's great. Great questions. It is 4:10. I want to be respectful of everybody's time and let you know you can sign off, but we are going to go ahead and stay on for a few more minutes if you do have questions. And thank you, Ryan, again for your presentation, and I think that this was really helpful. So thank you.
No problem. Anyone else?
And I'll just let you know, for those who are on the call still, we'll be reaching out by email to kind of see if we can set up some time to talk a little bit more. It doesn't have to be a long conversation, but we want to do this so that we're available to you and making sure that we're providing all the resources and networking and assistance that we can. And sometimes that's best achieved through some one-on-one conversations versus the cohort calls.
And if anyone needs some assistance, you know, Idella and Eric and I and Rick are happy to meet with you one-on-one.
One question. Pradeep, are you still on? I think you are. I've been trying to think about Pradeep, and I don't think you're quite there yet, but related to a concierge MVP for sort of the problem you're trying to solve. And I think, again, we still need to get correct on the problem specifically that you're solving. But maybe the next, you know, once you sort of understand that and you job shadow and sort of understand the process of qualifying, you know, would they be willing? Ultimately, you know, they don't care how they qualify leads, as long as, you know, that's something that they can trust and that adds value. But, you know, could you provide this qualification service for a cost just to validate that they're willing to trust some outside sort of vendor, not internal person to this process? I think that that's a big important test, because it seems like there's some distrust, and there's more of this. Their perception is it's sort of this art versus a process that can be outsourced. So, can you serve up yourself as, you know, I'm an expert in this area, I have this process, you don't necessarily tell them how you do it, and are they willing to pay for it, and can you deliver them a more refined, higher value lead, qualified lead list that eventually you can maybe automate. But the first couple customers is more of a concierge service. I don't know, Ryan, what's your thoughts on that, or anybody else?
Pradeep, are you still on?
It's recorded, and we'll follow up with more, I guess, discussion. And maybe it's not worth it if he's not on, but just that was what I was thinking with Pradeep's situation.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder if he couldn't understand, you know, how many licenses per month they're doing. Like the key questions I think Tactical Athlete was getting to with some of their interviews, because they're both B2B. You know, what's the average revenue per license? How many licenses per month? How many people doing that? You know, understand their current process.
Right.
If he could give them, if he could filter manually, absolutely.
And I'll just say thanks, Ryan. That was excellent, and thank you. So I guess we'll just stay on for a couple more minutes to see if anybody has any follow-up. Looks like most people are on though.
Yeah. Probably go ahead and shut it down. So thanks, everybody.
See you guys.